Thursday, April 18th. Go figure, huh? April 18th. That means you should have filed your taxes a few days ago. Can you hear the epidemic instrumental? Royalty free. More commonly known as Wilson's background music. Imagine yourself in the dentist office. You're waiting to get your teeth drilled. Hello, everybody. I have my cup of warm tea. I promise you I'd bring in my tea so you could see what loose tea. 2 scoops in the beautiful stainless steel strainer. I have a Keurig coffee maker. You put the cup in, and you put the thing down, and makes a cup of coffee. So what I do is I have this cup, and then I put the strainer in there, and then I have the tea in the strainer, and then I just put that underneath. No cup in the K-cup container, and just press it for 14-ounce cup of coffee, but there's no coffee. It's all the 196 degree water just sprinkles down on top of the loose tea, getting all of those marvelous tea flavors into the water. It's either distilled water or it's the 9.5 pH distilled water from the Smart Water folks, because it's supposedly steam distilled water and the pH is increased to 9.5 pH. And being a chemistry student, a student of chemistry, a pH of 7 is neutral. A low pH is acidic. A high pH is alkaline. So I get 9.5% alkaline Smart Water. I buy it by the case. 12-liter bottles in a black and white cardboard case, which makes for pretty nice iced tea, hot tea, almost anything that you want to make. Where you don't want acidic feelings in your stomach, kind of thing. It's not good to have a lot of acidic stuff, food-wise or beverage-wise. So, except I drink vodka and soda. 2 of those in the evening. 2 vodkas and soda in the evening. Don't have 3, just 2. Assuming I'm not driving anywhere, then I have 0. I have Dr. Brown Black Cherry or something, a name like that. Well, there's all kinds of news. April 18th, the magnanimous thing about April 18th is that it's 3 days after April 15th. And April 15th is the day you're supposed to file your taxes or file for a tax extension. We have filed for our taxes. And although the IRS says they expect the average American family to receive a $3,000 refund, we are below average because we're only going to get like a $2,100 refund. I helped Daniel, son Daniel, with his taxes, and he gets $1 back. It turned out to be exactly $1. Oh, I can't. Oh, geez. So he gets a credit to his account by about April 22nd for $1. How nuts is that, huh? Brennan, we're missing tax information on him, so we had to extend his. So we filed an extension. The extension was accepted, and now we have until October 15th. Hopefully we'll get everything we need from him for his return sooner than that. And then that's the end of another tax season. We are operating this little studio, as you probably know, with a MacBook Air. Quickly about it's an M2 chip MacBook with 24 gigabytes of memory, which is the maximum configuration for a MacBook Air with regard to memory, unified memory. 2 terabytes of on-disk storage. I got a little extra storage because every one of these broadcasts is there's a digital recording. Not only is this a simulcast with Twitter Live, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. YouTube is, I've really gotten used to YouTube, and it's really, it's an amazing, call it utility, call it a source, news source, video source. When I oftentimes listen to my broadcasts, after the broadcast, I actually go online and I click on YouTube Live, the @ FAU4U, FAU, the number 4, U. You can see it up in that headline over there at the top of the screen here. Let's add this. There we go. So now we can see I'm over here on this side. And this on that side. There we go. So, the disappointing news yesterday, when you watch the news, and part of what I do here is talk about some of the news, headline news, the highlights of the news, and I give my 2 cents worth. I'm going to give you my 50 cents worth instead of just 2 cents. I had a friend of mine, a Jewish family that lived to the east of us in our little village of East Hills. That's where our little thing in North Shore of Long Island, part of the whole metropolis of Roslyn. Went to Roslyn High School. East Hills was a little community that went to Roslyn High School. All the little students would walk to school. I being one of them. Until we were big enough to ride our bicycles, and we ride our bicycles to school until we were old enough to drive, and then we drove our cars to school. Anyway, so the people that lived to the east of this, his name was the Cohen family, and their son went to Columbia University. And the sad news of this, this anti-Semitic, it's just pitiful that these people are jumping up and down with burning flags and, down with it. I mean, really? Are we still that uncivilized where you get these crazies that want to annihilate, kill, maim, injure, insult? Just insulting. The Columbian students walking between their classes at Columbia University, and the boy students, the what you would call, relatively Orthodox Jewish male students. They have a yarmulke on, the little cap that's on the top of their head, black cap, and some anti-Semitic schlemiel swipes at the top of the head of the Jewish student to knock the yarmulke off. I mean, really? Can't the student just walk between classes without this schmuck swiping this Columbia student who's so proud to have been accepted at Columbia University, and he walks between classes and gets his head swiped to knock off the yarmulke off the head of the Jewish student. And this is the year 2024. Really? I mean, you just want to slap that offender in the face so hard that his cheek will be red for a month. It's really angering, to me. I mean, it just is God. I mean, my grandparents were now, granted, I'm crowding 80. I'm not 80. But I'm crowding 80. And my grandparents. So we're going into the 1800s. And oh boy, they came over to this country to escape all this Civil War and all this fighting and all this World War I and World War II, and oh my God. And here, a Jewish Colombian student gets smacked across the top of the head, and his yarmulke flies off. And all he's trying to do is get from his 9 a.m. class to his 10:30 in the morning class. And American history or something, liberal arts class or something. I mean, it's disgusting. I can't You know, I've been teaching at FAU since the year 2000. What is this? The year 2024? So that's 24 years. It's hard to believe. I started teaching there 24 years ago. Oh my God. That's a long time ago. 24 years ago. And you know what? Not much has changed. You know, in colleges and, you know, FAU, Florida Atlantic University, headquartered in sunny Boca Raton. We live about, what, 2.5 miles to the campus. I mean, we live really close to Palmetto Park Road and Federal Highway. Right at the intersection. Not exactly at the intersection, but right close. Louis Bassi is right there on the corner. So we're a couple buildings from Louis Bassi's. Marvelous lunch and dinner place. And guess who's the head chef? Louis Bassi. And proprietor, part owner. It's part of a, you know, like a small Southeast Florida chain of restaurants. One in Fort Lauderdale, one in Boca Raton, one in West Palm Beach. And, at least those three that I know of. I haven't really kept track of exactly where they were. Anyway, so we live right near Louis Bassi. Palmetto Park Road, Federal Highway, right at that intersection. You go to Glades Road, which is one more major street to the north of us, which is, let's say 2,000 feet north. And you go 2,000 feet west, and you're at Florida Atlantic University. It's just east of 95. So I-95 and Glades Road, that intersection, the southeast corner of that, Florida Atlantic University. It's a 30,000 student university. Let's say half live on campus, half live off campus or commute. It's a pretty major, force for, the city of Boca Raton. Anyway, so I've been teaching there for 24 years. And you have classroom buildings, you walk around, you got students, you hear the bell ring. They have a bell. And all of a sudden, okay, that'll be it for today. Here's your assignment sheet for the next month. We have classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 until 10:30. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Here's your reading assignments. This is what we'll be discussing in the lectures. We're talking about liberal arts classes of some sort. And when the bell rings, everyone breaks out of the classes. The doors open, the hallways fill, and the students go up the elevators, they go down the stairs, and then you got, I teach in a 3 or 4 story building in the Earth Sciences building. I think it's building 54. And I teach principles of digital photography. Hot topic. Everybody loves my class because I'm relatively entertaining. You spend money to, listen to Jimmy talk. It generally costs around $400 for the class. It's usually, 10 3-hour 3.5 hour, 10. 6:30 to 9:30, 7:30, 3 hours Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or 3 hours, Tuesday, Thursday, and have more weeks. 10 classes, 3 hours, 30 hours of instruction. And I would help everybody learn how to deal with digital photography and how to take good digital photos and how to edit the photos. So the only reason I bring that up is because I teach the class. The bell rings, the students walk around. Now, my classes were generally held at nighttime, 6:30 to 9:30 at night. So by 10 o'clock at night, everything kind of thins out at the campus pretty much. During the day, the kids walk around. It's the same thing when I went to school. It's the same exact thing. You got buildings here, you got buildings there, you got big wide sidewalks. The bell rings. All of a sudden, the sidewalks are full of students, coming and going between different buildings, Then you hear another bell. Another bell. 20 minutes later, which means you only got 10 minutes before the next class starts. And then a fast bell rings, which means class begins. That way everybody knows that the classes begin. Everyone is supposed to be seated in the class. All that. So I went to school in 1492. Here it's 2024. Nothing's changed. The schools are bigger. The buildings are taller. You have city schools, you have country schools, and you got everything in between, right? You got the City College in New York, I grew up in the North Shore of Long Island, which is, like 50 miles east of New York City and a little bit north, because the island kind of like tips up a little bit. Went to Jones Beach a lot. I used to surf at Gilgo Beach. When surfing wasn't very, there weren't many of us surfing on Gilgo Beach because surfboards were, that was a real big California thing. But on the North Shore of Long Island, we surfed on the South Shore of Long Island. It's a little chilly. We would actually, we got to the point where we bought wetsuits. We got smart after a couple years of surfing with our legs dangling and, water that was, 67 degrees. Well, let me tell you, when you got your butt sitting in 67 degree ocean water, the Atlantic Ocean water, surfs are breaking, and your legs are dangling in 67 degree water. After about, an hour of that, your body temperature, I imagine, is struggling to keep, above 90. Yeah, anyway. So we got smart and figured, all right, let's spring. So we saved up the money. We bought wetsuits, top and bottom. And it cost, I'm going to guess, $150 for the wetsuit. It cost about $150 for the surfboard. It was not easy getting a surfboard, in New York State, because, all the pretty girls and the surfers were in California. Anyway, we got our surfboards. So for about a $300 investment, you were capable of surfing for about 3 months out of the year, because you had summertime, and we'd surf. But schools are the same. It's pretty much the same old stuff. It's not like when I went to school, everything, oh my God, you're so old. Bullshit. Everything's about the same now as it was then. The only difference is, students have no respect. They have no respect for our society. Some students have no respect for each other. It's really, it's terrible. It's embarrassing, to see these people jumping up and down and burning American flag. Those people should be put in jail. They should be put in jail for 90 days. You burn an American flag and you're in this country. You go to jail for 90 days. Do not pass go. Forget legal. I'm seeing, right here, New York City. Last night they're burning flags. They're stamping on the flags. This anti-Israeli, banter. It's terrible. Can you imagine if the white people did that with black people's, stamped on Black Lives Matters flag? I don't know if there's a black flag, but, Yeah. Well, if you did that, phew, they put you in jail and throw the key away. Well, no. But to be anti-Semitica, you can do that and get away with it. But you couldn't do that if it was anti-black. You couldn't do that if it was like anti-Japanese, anti-Chinese, anti-Israel. No problem. Let's stamp on them. Yes, it's terrible. What makes that right? I don't. I'm sorry. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It's disgusting, and it's. I'll call it bad parenting. For that to be going on in our society that we live in. Come on, it's terrible parenting. Anyway, that's enough of that. So another, since we're talking news, so then you got Trump. Poor Trump. Jeez, we got all kinds of stuff going on in the city of New York City. So, Attorney General Bragg, what does he do? They arrest Trump because he, it's amazing. This hush money, they call it hush money. It's not hush money. It's called a NDA. An NDA. Like every news broadcaster, faculty members of organizations, members, I was a bank employee for 35 years, all kinds of different levels. As a vice chairman of a bank, I was a teller in a bank, and I was everything in between. CEO of the bank, president of the holding company, whatever. I had to sign an NDA. What is that? A non-disclosure agreement. I swore under penalty of the legal system of the Federal Reserve you shall not disclose any private matters of any of your banking clients. Just to pick a topic. You had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And if you disclosed anything, you could be prosecuted by the United States government for giving up confidential information about any client that you're dealing with. Because client information is between you that are aware of it and the client. Nobody else. No third parties. You're not allowed to whisper it at a cocktail party. You're not allowed to print it in the newspaper. We had to sign ethical statements and non-disclosure agreements, NDA. So 7 years ago, Trump is getting ready to run for president. Guess who shows up 7 months before he starts his campaign? Stormy Daniels all of a sudden shows up. After 10 years or so, Stormy Daniels shows up and starts, rattling the cage. I'm going to say this and I'm going to say that. So Trump gets a hold of his lawyer and says, get a hold of this woman and have her go away. I don't know who she is. I didn't have anything to do with her. Have her sign an NDA, negotiate, some 6-digit number, and get rid of her. So she agrees to accept $130,000 of Trump's personal money in exchange for signing in front of a notary a non-disclosure agreement that says, I shall shut up and I shall go away and not disturb, right? NDA, non-disturbing agreement. NDA. She took the money in good faith. You raise your right hand, say, I shall not discuss this any further. And I will take Mr. Trump's personal money and go away. Well, guess what? He's getting ready to run for office again. 7 years later, this woman shows up again and starts yapping. After she signed a non-disturbance agreement, an NDA, and violates her own contract that she signed with former President Trump. And back then it was candidate Trump. Now he's candidate Trump again. What does she do? She shows up again. So obviously she is either being paid by the political opposition or she's just, can't honor her own contracts. I mean, she agreed to shut up. She agreed to go away. She took his money. $130,000 is a lot of money. That's like twice what the average person makes in a year. And she took the money and she promised to go away. And every 4 years, she comes back to haunt this guy. So now he's on trial with the penalty of actually being locked in jail because this woman violated her own contract that she signed. And she has not said, oh, I didn't sign that. She didn't say, oh, I didn't understand that. She fully understood what it meant. It means, you shall shut up. How about that for legal terms? You shall shut up. Forever. It's not like it said, you shall shut up for 40 months, and then 6 months before an election, you can pop your big face in front of the TV again and start whining and complaining about, whatever she's saying and how she was abused by this. Same crap every 4 years. She comes parading herself, in front of the cameras. And of course the cameras, they love, Sex in the City. There was no sex. There was no relationship, according to Trump. Of course, that's what they all say, right? She signed a $130,000 contract that said, "I shall shut up forever. And in exchange for that, I'm gonna take Mr. Trump's $130,000, 2 times the average salary of a working person." Here she is again. Now he's being prosecuted by the state of New York because it's hush money. You're not allowed to do that. Of course you are. The district attorney himself signed a non-disclosure agreement. He signed a non-disclosure agreement on penalty that he can't receive his $200,000 a year salary if he yaks and talks and prejudices cases. They sign ethical agreements. They sign non-disclosure contracts. The whole world deals with non-disclosure agreements. God, even if you're an employee at McDonald's and you take the McDonald's training program, you sign a non-disclosure agreement saying you shall not tell anybody about the techniques of McDonald's training programs. I mean, think about it. Our whole society is wrapped around non-disclosure agreements to keep things secret. That's the whole idea. Non-disclosure. Hello. Secrets. Corporate secrets. Anybody that's worked for scientists, I worked, I was trained as a scientist. You sign non-disclosure agreements all the time to protect your proprietary experiments that you make. I was working on a device. I mean, this is just my own personal thing. I was working on a device that was competing with government contracts for the detection of UDMH, unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine. How about that for a big long word? That word is about, whoa, unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine. It's this big. That's a big word. It is rocket fuel. Remember the space shuttle? I don't know if you remember the space shuttle. Wasn't that long ago, right? They were going up and down for 30 years. Used to take stuff up to the space station. Big cargo bays open up and release satellites and all that stuff. The propellant for the space shuttle was UDMH, unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine. The oxidizer was LOX, liquid oxygen. Liquid oxygen comes in with UDMH and you ignite it. It produces a huge amount of thrust as the big thimble on a plume of, oh my God, looked like a Bunsen burner. 3 Bunsen burners. Beautiful, high power, hundreds of thousands of pounds of thrust caused by what I would call a controlled explosion of UDMH and liquid oxygen. as that thrust blasts you back in your seat of the space shuttle as it takes off, lands, breaks the Earth's atmosphere. Anyway, I was working on a device, personally working on a device that would measure trace contaminants of UDMH, because UDMH is a very it was unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine. So hydrazine is two carbon atoms, with a double bond between them, and a methane molecule up here, and a methane molecule down there. That's what made it unsymmetrical. Yeah, because the methanes weren't on the ends. They were like, one was up and one was down, and a double carbon bond here, this way. So, hydrazine, unsymmetrical, dimethyl, because you had two methanes attached to two carbon atoms, attached to each other. And I was developing this device that would measure in the level of 1 or 2 parts per billion. A part per billion. 1 part per billion parts is take an eyedropper with blue paint in it, an eyedropper, and you 1 drop in a swimming pool 3 feet deep and 1 square acre. That's 209 feet by 209 feet by 3 feet deep. Calculate the number of gallons of that. It's a billion drops. 1 drop of colored ink dropping in that swimming pool. That is the ratio of the concentration of 1 part per billion. That's like a raindrop. 1 raindrop in a swimming pool, 1 acre in size, 3 foot deep. I did that calculation a long time ago. And so when you have something, so the reason why we wanted to create this device, now on Nike missile bases and the space shuttle, launch pad 39A, for example, in the Kennedy Space Center, they have these big machines. Take a refrigerator, your typical 24 cubic foot refrigerator, turn it on its side, and you got all this electronics in there, and it's got a little wand that comes out of it, like this straw. You got this little wand that comes out, and it sniffs for UDMH. This little wand that feeds into a tube, and in the tube you got all this processing stuff going on inside this huge piece of machinery with a wire coming out of it that's this big around. And it would sniff for trace contaminants of UDMH, because, with the Kennedy Space Center or Nike missile bases, you got the armed services walking around with guns and rifles over their shoulders, protecting the missile base or protecting the Space Center. Well, when you got a million pounds of UDMH in a big tank, ready for a blast off, so to speak, or getting ready for blast off, or over here on the side, a few thousand feet away, they're gonna pipe in UDMH into loading up the tanks, getting ready for blast off. Well, they have to, of course, when they're moving the UDMH back and forth between the storage tanks and the rocket ship, or in a Nike missile base where you got subterranean, missile silos. Oops, sorry. But you got military people walking around, on top of the ground. Missile silos are below the ground. You got this big equipment that costs, I'm going to say $1 million a copy. God knows what it costs for these things to be sniffing for UDMH. Because 1 part per billion, or 2 parts, or 3 parts per billion, I think it was 3 parts per billion, and it could be lethal. It would make you sick, at the very least. So if you could sniff out 1 part per billion, 2 parts per billion, then you were probably sniffing it out before we get to what was, in the red zone danger, like 5 parts per billion. Alarms go off, and you got to clear the area because you've got a leak of UDMH, the propellant for a Nike missile or the space shuttle. It's a very caustic material, very corrosive material. I don't know if you remember, but there was one time where they were loading up the space shuttle with some UDMH. They had these big hoses that, go, load up the space shuttle with propellant. And, it's like you have a gas station and you got a couple of drips that drip, from the gas that you're putting in your gas tank, and it drips on the side of your car, and it burns a hole right through the car. That's how corrosive UDMH was. It'd burn a hole right through, and they had those special tiles on the space shuttle. Burn a hole right through those tiles. They had to scrub the mission and replace the tiles because the tiles had burn holes through them because the technicians that were loading UDMH into the tanks spilled it on the tiles. Well, of course, then you got all these guys walking around the wands trying to smell to see if there's any UDMH remaining. Remember they used to land this shuttle? And the shuttle had to sit out there on the runway for like an hour or two. You know what they were waiting for? They weren't waiting for the bus to show up. The bus wouldn't even drive there until the all clear was signaled that there was no residual UDMH being emitted from the engines of the space shuttle after it landed on the runway at the Kennedy Space Center. They were sniffing for UDMH. And then a vehicle will ride out there with these special sensors. These antennas sticking out with these little snippers. Well, I had devised something with my PhD assistant director of chemistry at the college I went to. And I was developing a device that was the size of an 11-inch iPad. Not that thick. Just think of an 11-inch iPad, about the thickness of a cup of coffee. But 8 by 10, just think like a ream of paper with a shoulder strap on it, with a little hose coming out of it. And I had a hose, and it was the hose was an aquarium hose, and I had it attached to a glass rod. And then the other end of the hose went into a, an aquarium pump that you buy, the little bubbler that would bubble, air in an aquarium or your fish tank. Well, I figured out how to make that little pump vibrate with a battery. I converted DC to AC, and so I had a battery in there. Had this little vibrating pump. I remember it was like turquoise in color. I had a coil. Anyway, so instead of pumping air, it was sucking air. So it would suck air in the pipe, and then that air would then suck through a solution, had 2 electrodes in the solution, and then it would go into the pump, and then the pump would expel what was being sucked out the back end of the 8 by 10 by, let's say, 2.5 inch, like a ream of paper, a little briefcase kind of portable thing. Could have weighed 3 pounds. Had a little tiny lead acid battery. The kind of a battery you'd use to remember these planes that had a glow plug. So you had these little battery packs that would make the glow plug, and then you'd make the propeller start, and you have these little engines, and you'd fly airplanes. Anyway, the little battery that was used for those model airplanes was the little battery we used to energize this bubbler. And that little bubbler then would suck air through the straw into the clear plastic hose. It would go through this little solution, and this little solution had 2 electrodes in it, and if it smelled UDMH, the needle would go drip all the way over like that. No DMH, the needle would remain this way. We fine-tuned it where it would be, good, better, best, or okay, not so good, red, So green, yellow, red. I mean, we made it kind of obvious. And it worked. Now, we were in a chamber arrangement where we had some UDMH, which is a highly volatile, highly caustic material. We had to have it specially trucked in from Scientific American or some repository of all kinds of different chemicals. Anyway, so we ended up with, a thimbleful of UDMH. Remember, only 1 drop in a huge swimming pool. Would be enough to kill you. So, very, very poisonous, very toxic. You smell it, boop, you're dead. So we had to be very careful. So we used very little tiny smidgen, a 100th or 1,000th of a gram. We'd extract it with this little tiny pipette and put it on a little piece of paper towel. Making up a story here. A little piece of paper towel would sit, in this big chamber, about 2 feet by 3 feet by whatever. Looked like an aquarium that was sealed. And we'd have a little piece of paper. And a little tiny drop of UDMH. And I'd have my little my little device with the aquarium tank bubbler. And we stick that wand in there carefully so that none of the UDMH vapor would come out into the atmosphere of our chemistry lab, or else we'd all fall over dead. Yeah, or get really sick, actually. And sure as heck, that needle went, it went, as soon as it started to smell the UDMH, the needle started to go, okay. So we adjusted the fluid and the concentration of the fluids that were sensitive to UDMH, and it caused the fluid to become conductive to electricity. So we had a little null circuit within and so we had a little battery over here. So if UDMH was in the solution, because it smelled it through the straw, because of the aquarium air bubbler, and it worked. It was great. We had green, yellow, red. Okay, caution, emergency. And we had Defense Department review of it, and they were they had this big machinery that cost $1 million a copy. You hear Jimmy in a laboratory on the 3rd story, or a little building somewhere, came up with this thing with an aquarium pump to replace $1 million piece of equipment. And this thing would cost, total cost for all this stuff, going to Scientific American and going to, Lafayette Radio. We built this thing for like $30 tops, $30. The meter that went to, green, yellow, red. I mean, that costs half the cost of the whole thing. It's just to produce this nice looking meter. Because back in those days, it was, needles, and it was primitive. We didn't have the digital technology we have today. Today you have a digital module and you're all good. Back then we had to make our own stuff. Anyway, so it's $30 worth of stuff. And it replaced something that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It had this big plug, 230 volts. Here, this is running off to some little stupid little battery. A couple of AA batteries, right? It's just amazing. Anyway, so we filed for a patent. And as it turns out, about after a year we filed for the patent, because it worked. Meetings scheduled with the Defense Department and all this other stuff. And they decided to energize Nike missile bases with something other than UDMH, which totally wiped out my little invention. So that's my invention story of the day. And it all comes down to what I was talking about. Schools are schools. You got laboratories. You got people in back rooms like Jimmy's. Smart kids, not so smart kids. Kids dreaming up stuff that no one ever thought of. Easier ways of doing things. 10:45. And you got classrooms and students, and the bell rings, and everyone scatters. And another bell rings, and then there's no one scattering because everyone's in class, different classes. And that's my 1 hour. You see this? You see the 1 hour, 8 seconds, 9 seconds. It means I've been yakking for an hour. Oh my god, it's amazing how time flies. Anyway, so I'm disgusted that these students are with this any smell. Whether it's Jewish, Jewish, red, yellow. You're not allowed to. What's the matter with these? I mean, it's terrible parenting that their kids are running around. There's, all these people are children of some parents somewhere. They either had parents, didn't have parents, they grew up in the gutter, I don't know what. But, you know, you need to be civilized. We're in a civilized society. And if not, you know, get out of here. You don't like it? Death to America? Are you kidding me? Get out. Deport them. Find out which country do you want to go to, because, and give us your passport, your driver's license, any form of American identity, and we're throwing you to the island of Corsica or wherever, and you will not be permitted to enter the United States ever again. And as a warning, if you burn our flag, you go to jail for 90 days. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You know, this is extrajudicial. It's automatic, and you go to jail for 90 days, and then maybe you won't burn the flag again. You burn the flag again, you're deported. You are out of the country. You got to do, you know. I remember when Trump was in office, and you went through this period where, you know, bad guys were pulling down statues and so forth. He put his foot down, and he said, anybody that touches any of these statues, they go to jail for 10 years, period. I don't care what kind of lawyer you have or whatever, you're in jail for 10 years. So I would suggest all you people that are climbing all over our national monuments, get off them. Don't lasso them and pull them over, because all of you will be arrested and you're in jail for 10 years. Okay, so if you want to lose your liberty, keep it up. I suggest you stop. And guess what? It stopped immediately. It's called law and order. We live in a civilized society, and you know, that's New York wonders why there's so much crime, because these stupid judges and prosecutors won't prosecute crime. They have no respect for the police, and therefore the criminals, you know, the criminals have rights and the victims don't. No. That's like backwards. Anyway, so Trump is being prosecuted. Listen to this. 39 federal counts. Each count is like, 8 years in prison. So he'd be in jail for 327 years. Well, get this. So he goes to his accountant and he says, or he goes to his secretary and says, type up a memo to our accountants to draft money to be sent to my lawyer so the lawyer can pay an installment payment to Stormy Daniels. So that's 1, 2, 3 acts. You wrote the memo to draw up the check. You wrote the check. That's 2 things. And you delivered the installment to Stormy Daniels. That's 3 things. 3 hush money things. Each item is separately convictable too. Yeah. Each item is a crime because it all, is connected together. It's like saying you robbed $100, so you robbed, $10,000. Each $100 bill that you stole is punishable in prison, for 5 years. Really? No. Robbery is one thing. So you got a non-disclosure agreement. Trump paid this woman, or paid the lawyer who paid Stormy Daniels installments like $10,000 or 13 installments, 11 installments. 11, I think. So since it was 3 separate things that you did in order to create the draft of money that went to her, and there's 11 of them, 3 times 11, that's 30. So 33 of the 39 counts indictment is the ordering the check, the production of the check, and the delivery of the check. I mean, this is such a, pardon the expression, a trumped up case. And because you had all these different things, then it made it, this all happened like 7 years ago. So it was the statute of limitations has already run. It's full course. But because it's just a conspiracy and all that, they can wrap it into some kind of federal crime. The Justice Department looked and says, there's just no case. They would not draw this case. But this, these district attorneys run for office. They're elected officials. Instead of chosen because they're good, they're chosen because they convinced their electorate to elect them. And this guy ran to get Trump. Well, you don't. Our legal system, you're not supposed to look at the guy and we'll find the crime. No. You find the crime and see who did it. It's not that, the whole thing is turned on its head. It's crazy. Now, it's hard for me to believe that no matter how bad you may not like Trump, and I'm not a Trump lover. I guess because he's a celebrity, we'd have more. But other than that, probably, I'd rather have dinner with my own friends, not necessarily, because he can be rude, crude, and unprofessional. Let's just say that. But because, he is a former president, sure, let's have lunch. But aside from the celebrity aspect of being a former president, you can't convict him of something that's so ridiculous. It is. Legal scholars say this is judicially absurd that this is even happening. And here this guy's they got to select the jury, and it's this big thing, and oh my God, he's sitting in there, which is why this picture is sitting there. Every day while the jurors are being selected, and he's got to sit in there for like 2 months, going through all this stuff. Then they have their opening statements, and then they put on the case, and then Trump's attorneys can cross-examine witnesses. And the state of New York's lead witness is a serial perjurer. Oh, that's a great witness. That's their lead witness. Trump's former lawyer, who is also supposedly signed, a million non-disclosure agreements and the canons of law and, the confidentiality between client and attorney. Oh, forget attorney-client privilege when you're being paid by people. Forget attorney-client privilege. If you can prosecute a former president. The first time in the history of the United States, the entire United States history, no court of law has ever prosecuted a former president. Except in the state of New York, we got all these liberal dickheads that are trying to do anything to get Trump. Why? Because they're afraid he's going to win re-election. And they're trying to do anything they possibly can to get in the way of that. Because the American people are suffering with runaway inflation, gasoline, interest rates, crime, open borders. There's 4 real biggies that are really making life terrible. And I have a picture of someone here that's really... Have you ever heard of Alice? Alice is an acronym. It's someone that makes too much money to qualify for any kind of federal poverty level incentives, but doesn't make enough to make ends meet. Just imagine making just enough money at your job so you don't qualify for any food stamps or any disability payments, but not enough money to afford your rent and your health care. You know what that makes you? It makes you Alice. That makes you an asset-limited, income-constrained employed. So if you're employed, asset-limited, and income-constrained, you're Alice. A-L-I-C-E. That's disgusting. Half of America are a bunch of Alices. Asset limited, income constrained, and they're employed. And they're not looking for a handout. They're just looking for some relief. And I have a feeling there are enough of these acronym labeled people saying, you know what? I don't maybe like Trump so much because he's this or he's that, or he tweets, or he's a bull. He's a, you know what he is? I was a banker for 30 years. I call him a kick-ass CEO. He pushes to get his company to do what it needs to get done. A kick-ass CEO to make that golf course, the grass is cut just right. The clubhouse is immaculate. There's no napkins laying around. There's not a rubber band laying on the floor. The floors are polished. They look beautiful. You walk in there, it's like the club was opened for you. That's what a kick-ass CEO does, because everything has to look just perfect when you walk in the front doors of that clubhouse, assuming you're a member of a golf clubhouse. You're paying good money to be in that clubhouse. It's got to look just right. Look at this lady. She's got her shopping cart. She's got her veggies. She's got a nice long Italian bread, some fresh fruit. She's got a bag of, I'm going to say chicken. And she's got her calculator phone in her hand. And she's doing the math because she can't decide whether she can buy 1 pound, 2 pounds, or 3 pounds of chicken, because she's asset constrained, income constrained, and asset limited. That's sad that you can't just go through the shopping store, the grocery store, and pick out your groceries and go home and unpack them and enjoy preparing food for your family. Nope, you gotta watch out, because I need enough money to buy Johnny's medicine because he has asthma. And if I buy 2 pounds of chicken instead of 1 pound of chicken, I may not have enough money for Johnny's medicine. That's in the United States of America, we shouldn't have to live that way. And when you're paying gasoline prices, as I remember, were about $1.65 a gallon when Trump left office. And now they're almost $4 a gallon. Just think of it. $1.50 a gallon is being paid to Saudi Arabia for refined gasoline because our current president won't drill, baby, drill. We've got more petroleum. We have more liquid gold under our feet in the United States than 10 Saudi Arabias. Most people don't realize that. We've got an incredible wealth of petroleum, liquid gold under our feet in our home United States. But now, we got this Green New Deal. We're going to force everybody we're going to make the price of petroleum so expensive, can't wait till they get their electric car. In the meantime, everybody, when they get a tank full of gasoline, it costs them $100 to fill up instead of $30 to fill up. That's $70. He's willing to take $70 out of the fanny of every American family every week and send it to Saudi Arabia for his Green New Deal. In the meantime, China is opening up a coal-fired plant every week. A new coal-fired plant every week in China and in India. It's pretty terrible. Inflation is at 3.5% and rising. It was under 2%. It's like 1.5% under Trump. Biden, he spends money like a drunken sailor. Our tax money paid all this Green New Deal crap, and spends trillions of dollars, hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars and inflation goes to 9%, 9.5%. Drops down to like 3.25%. Now it's starting to go up again because Biden won't stop spending money. You can't spend money you don't have. Can't do it in an American family. Can't do it the U.S. government. I used to teach banking classes when I was a banker. And I took the American government as I called it Uncle Sam. Literally. Let's see if Uncle Sam qualifies for a home loan. It wouldn't happen. Uncle Sam spends more money than he makes, and he has almost a negative net worth. Add up all the assets, add up all the liabilities. Oh boy. He's got 13 trillion in debt. Excuse me, 34 trillion in debt. Now I took all the zeros off to make it like literally Uncle Sam, like Uncle Louie. I call him Uncle Sam. And I said, now would you give Uncle Sam a loan to buy that car or buy that house? No sane banker would make that loan. Well, that's the present state of our federal government. It doesn't even qualify for a home loan. We're on the tipping point. Because when you tip over and you stop paying, when you can't pay the interest on your debt, it's called bankruptcy. It's not because you don't have assets. It's because you don't have cash. There are a lot of people that go bankrupt that have assets, but they don't have cash. And they can't sell their assets fast enough to create enough cash to pay their debts. Well, then guess what? U.S. dollar value, it goes to. They got people running around in the, with dollar bills and wheelbarrows. Yeah, we're close. Whoever they elect for president in the next 4 years, better that person, whoever it is, this party, that party, I don't care what party, because if they don't stop spending, there ain't going to be any more parties. We're going in the tubes. But one reason why one political candidate has a shot at saving this country is because he needs to be a kick-ass CEO. He needs to stop what we're doing, because if you don't make a change, there won't be a change. It's not very complicated. You got to stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. That's hurting our economy, whatever it is. I don't care if it's a personal economy, a national economy, a state economy. Yeah. We balance our budgets in the state of Florida. We have budget surpluses, because we're not spending more than we're taking in. It is a constitutional requirement that we have a balanced budget. Why don't we have a balanced budget amendment? What's wrong with that idea? Well, then these politicians wouldn't be spending money all the time, because they're trying to buy votes. Your special project in your special city, your special states. Anyway, I'll get up my soapbox. But this is all important stuff. This is all important stuff. A lot of Alice's out there. Asset limited, income constrained, however employed. Alice's. It's a term coined by United Way's United for Alice program to describe Americans who work and make more than the federal poverty level, but who don't qualify for any of the programs. So they have to watch out. Very carefully, have to watch out. About 30% of the U.S. population are Alice's. 13% are below the poverty level, but 30% can't hardly make ends meet, but don't qualify for any federal help. And here this lady has to use the calculator in her iPhone to determine how much stuff she's put in that shopping cart, and determine whether she can afford to have apple pie for dessert. More and more Americans are becoming Alice's. They can't afford rent and groceries, and are falling behind. There she is again. That's the headline. Headline news for Jimmy today. Trump cuts into Biden's lead among young people, poll finds. Well, no kidding, because young people are getting tortured by high gas prices and inflation. Inflation is the worst tax imaginable, because it hits everybody. It hits everybody that spends money. One more headline, then I'm going to be quiet. Look at this. Inside of an iPhone is a new camera called a prism lens. The lens lays sideways inside the camera, inside the phone, where the light goes in the lens, and then it goes this way through the lens elements. It hits a prism, goes this way, and then another prism that goes down into the imager. So the imager is actually not like directly behind the lens. It goes this way and then down. Sony developed that prism lens years ago. And it's come out of copyright, you know. It was a patent. It went out of the 20-year patent period. And now anybody can make a prism lens. When you design something really exciting, the United States government gives you a patent and gives you a 20-year period where no one can do it except for you. And then when that patent period expires, then anybody can do it. Well, anybody is now Apple, and they're producing a lens that could be a super optical over 300 millimeter focal length ultra telephoto. How amazing would that be? You got I have my little, I showed you this a while ago. I promise I'm going to be quiet. It's called this newer frame I have here. NEEWER. It's an aluminum frame. It's real heavy. And I mean, not heavy weight, but heavy duty. And your iPhone clips right on there. And my camera is going to be the iPhone. And I'm very tempted. If they come out with this super telephoto phone September, I think I'm going to sell my big Canon lens. $3,000 lens, put it up on eBay, sell it for $22.50. Take the cash and run, and use my iPhone as my camera. And forget, why have a 3-pound camera, 4-pound camera when this newer thing weighs less than a pound and is highly portable, and it serves as your phone. and the newer frame, you can just hang around your neck and take your phone off of it when you're not taking pictures. And the thing weighs about 8 ounces, maybe, tops. Anyway, that's just the new news I just read. iPhone 16 Pro Max could be the first iPhone to feature super telephoto periscope camera, increasing optical zoom to the super telephoto over 300 millimeters in, focal length. How cool would that be? Right now, I have an iPhone 15, right? And it has a 5x optical zoom. It's magnificent to go 5x's optical zoom, no degradation to the visible eye. Has a tetra prism, 2 prisms. See, there's one prism goes down this way, and then here's another prism that reflects light, hits back of the prism, goes straight down and hits the imager. The first prism, the light goes in there, then goes through the lens elements, and they focus on the end. And then the second prism puts the light onto the imager. All right. That puts me at an hour and a half of yakking away. Next time, SpaceX launched Starlink, a bunch of Starlink satellites. 23 Starlink version 2 mini satellites. There are 32 of them, all inside those two fairings on top of the rocket, with, I think, 9 Merlin engines. Here's the countdown timeline. You can see the different things with the check marks. Falcon 9. There's 9 engines. The propellant tank starts to be pressurized. The launch director with 1 minute and 28 seconds. Verifies go for launch. 2 minutes to go. You know, you end up with, or I should say in 2 minutes. The engine sequence starts, and 3 seconds later, that baby, the clamps are released. Just remember, you got like 1 million pounds of rocket propellant, liquid oxygen, the cylinder, everything, the whole shooting match has got to weigh 1 million pounds. Well, they got these big clamps, on the bottom of the rocket. And those clamps don't let loose until there's enough thrust to lift that baby up. Because it's 1 million pounds. You got to have 1 million pounds worth of thrust popping out of the bottom end of that rocket. That's all I know about rocketeer. And there it is. 25 seconds after liftoff. You can see it in the atmosphere. 2,000 or 3,000 feet up. And there's the plume coming at the back end of that 9 Merlin engines. It's a minute 41. Minute 56. The plume gets bigger as it's getting near the vacuum of space. These telescopic cameras. Look at that. Focused in on the moon once the Starlink rocket, the Falcon rocket, got out of visible range. Look at the craters that you can see on the I mean, look at it. What an amazing piece of optics that you can capture the moon in the atmosphere. We are beta testers for Apple, of course. There's tens of millions of, actually hundreds of millions of iPhones out there. And we're part of a unique group of Apple iPhone users that are beta testers for the operating system, iOS 17.5 Beta 2. See here, it says iOS 17 public betas. So you have to sign up for that with your Apple ID and so forth, and agree that if things go boom, you won't blame Apple. I mean, not boom, but the thing crashes and you lose your valuable information on your phone. Apple's a pretty big company. They got pretty good software engineers. And when they allow a public beta to be released to the few tens of thousands of people like Jimmy's out there that are willing to try out the latest and the greatest and report back with the duty to report back to Apple if you find something not working right, which I've done. There's a special application. If I can show it here. Let's go here. It's a purple It's a purple looking logo. Yeah, I'll find it. But anyway, it's an application that I don't think it'd be here. But you go to this. It's an icon, okay? And you go to that icon, and it has all kinds of menus. And you tell the Apple engineers what's going on. And then they'll try it out. They'll try to reproduce it exactly the way you characterized it. And if it's something that's a viable, important issue, they'll fix it. So that in the next public beta, and they get, thousands of suggestions on what's not right. I filled out three, over the years, 3 or 4 of those. It'd be nice if I could find it, find the application, the icon, just so you can see what the icon looks like. Let me just scroll through this real quickly. It's a purple, and it has, I think, an exclamation point in the middle of a purple colored. Look at all these apps I got. It's disgusting. Well, I try out a lot of this stuff, to make, I do this for everybody. There's purple with a star. There's purple with a podcast. Come on, let's find another purple one. Getting down to the end of the ball game here. I don't see it. Somewhere. Okay, that's it for today. It's 11:23. Wow, I've taken this from the early cocktail time. So, I'm looking up where it is a monitor up here, and any Israeli protesters in Austin, Texas, and they're all over the place. They're gonna lock them up. Lock them up. It's not right to be protesting against race, color, creed. It's unconstitutional. You're not allowed to, prejudice. It's terrible. Well, I call it bad parenting. How about that for an excuse? The 13-inch iPad Air will use the same display technology as the current larger iPad Pro. Well, good. This right here is an iPad Pro. It is and it's connected to this Magic Keyboard, which is a regular keyboard, just like you find in a laptop, but it's touchscreen. So this is like a touchscreen laptop. What could be better? It is wonderful because the Apple ecosystem, with all the apps they got, you saw me scrolling through all those apps. They got an app to do everything. So I use this mostly for photo editing. But I use it for all kinds, email, text messages, you name it. I have a MacBook Pro only for the one reason, or several reasons, is that some of the I'm working with a couple of commercial clients, and I have to have software that works on an actual laptop, which doesn't work with the Apple ecosystem. Regular email clients, email programs, put it that way, and certain spreadsheet programs that you can get them to work, on an iPad or an iPhone, but they're really designed for a laptop, so I need to have a laptop. And I have to have the portability of a laptop. So I have the MacBook Air, which operates this little studio arrangement. And it's all plugged in, taped in. It's kind of like a fixed thing here. And but I got the MacBook Pro under the dining room table, so I work on that at night. I just figured out how to get the time machine working on a 2 terabyte solid state Samsung solid state drive. No moving parts. Amazing. $100 gigabits per second transfer speed through a wire. Amazing. It's an amazing time to be alive in the technology world. All right. It's 11:27 a.m. I've been on the air for an hour and 42 minutes. It's a good thing that the Epidemic Sound instrumental is a little over a 3-hour instrumental. I'm using about 2 hours of the 3-hour instrumental. You hear that? Nice. I love that music. I mean, it's really great. Well, listen, I'm going to stop talking because I got to figure out what I'm going to say tomorrow. And I hope you have a great lunch. I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to have for lunch.